Welcome to the Boo-Foons Mystery Investigators. I'm Dan.
And I'm Steve.
And today we are joined by Daniel, who is from the True Paranormal.
Hello.
Boo-Foons Mystery Investigators.
Brilliant to have you here. So before we kick off, the True Paranormal. Now, I originally met you through your TikToks, and I'm aware of your website, your database, all of that. So why should people click onto, or rather, tell us about it? Get people to just go over there, because I think people should go and click on your website and your TikTok. But yeah.
So with the database, I always market it as being the world's largest database of paranormal research, which is a matter of some debate. Some, like one or two people have questioned it. My justification of the claim is it's not necessarily largest as in quantity of articles, but it's the variety of articles as well as the amount of detail they go into. So if you like haunted locations, paranormal artifacts, people involved in the paranormal, whether that be people presently involved or historical figures, also bits of folklore, bits and pieces of my own research as well. You can find all of that there, and the articles are typically formatted. So first I discuss all of the history, which doesn't discuss the hauntings or the paranormal aspect, it's purely the historical side. And then I discuss what people are saying about the haunted side of things, which should kind of highlight some muddy bits of the history involved there where you're like, that wasn't mentioned in the history section. Where's that come about? And then I discuss my thoughts at the end, where I then point out these things a little bit more and discuss kind of tourism angles, which might contribute towards how haunted a location is, as well as, the history side, and if the history does line up with the hauntings or not. And if hauntings have suddenly been discussed after certain teams have investigated there, and if they don't predate those investigations. So yeah, it's got plenty of things on there. I've been running it for a couple of years now. It's got over 100 articles on there of all these different topics. So that's why you should check out the database. The TikTok account, bit more relaxed, not overly paranormal focused. It started off paranormal focused, and I intend on putting more paranormal content on there, with me reading out some articles and uploading those as videos to listen to. But at the moment, if you go on there, it's me live streaming a lot, where I do Lego building and chatting with people, answering questions that they might have about the paranormal or just things in general. And I also do a little bit of gaming streaming on there as well.
I must ask about the TikTok. There's an awful lot of Lego. Do you live in a toy shop?
Yeah, there's so much Lego. I work in a Lego shop. One of the common questions I get is, how do you have so much money for all of this Lego? And the answer is, I don't. It's just a case of I work in a Lego shop. I have done for like the past 8 years. I'm in my 9th year there now. So over that time, I've gotten a lot of Lego, and across the last 20 years, I've just liked Lego and have been collecting it. So that's where all the Lego has come from.
Did you build that Lego Ghostbusters? Sorry, not Lego. Ghostbusters Minecraft firehouse yourself?
Yes, yeah. Everything in the Minecraft stuff I have built myself. The only exception actually is the roads that you see. I designed the roads, and then there was someone else who built a lot of the road, which I'd kind of already marked out while I wasn't on there, because otherwise that would have been really tedious to do. So yeah,
it's amazing. I can't stop watching. I've got it on loop. Looking at it, it's just I love it. I've got the Lego one up there all lit up.
Nice.
If you can
That's
see
good.
it. So,
that's good. Yeah. So you'll know how accurate the build is then.
Yes, it looks exactly like it. I'm looking at it thinking this is identical. Very impressed.
Thank you. I started off the TikTok account by doing live streams where I read out the articles, but people didn't really want to stick around for that, which is understandable. It's quite boring just watching some guy just drone on about random bits of history. but people noticed Lego in the background. And so anyone who did stick around was like, oh, what's that Lego set? Can you show me the Lego? And then I showed everyone the entire collection, and everyone went a bit mental. And then I was like, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Lego-based stuff there and show you about the Lego. And if people want to know about the paranormal, they can ask, and then I'll be happy to discuss. So, yeah.
So I don't know. There does seem to be a link between Lego and people who like in the paranormal. There's another friend of mine who he's into ghost hunting and the paranormal, and he's obsessed by Lego. I don't know if maybe just people are obsessed with Lego and just happens to be a few people like paranormal stuff as well. But they do seem to go. Dan has a load of Lego stuff in his room as well, in his house. So there does seem to be. I don't know if it's how the brain works. It's something creative, and it all goes together. Perhaps it's
yeah. I mean,
it may be something with.
Yeah, kind of going along those lines, it could be a case of with Lego, it's very much so a puzzle, and you're trying to focus on figuring out how to put pieces together to make a thing, and that's very much so the paranormal. So I think people who have that mind for Lego probably have the same mind for solving things and solving mysteries, and the paranormal is, I would say, the answer, like, is the life after death, is one of life's greatest mysteries, if not the greatest, I would say.
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right there. Yeah, I think it is. It's just, that is the ultimate mystery. Everything else we can work out. Well, eventually, probably will be worked out, but it's a life after death. I don't think we'll only know personally at one time in our life or the end of it. That's it. It's a fascinating thing. But loving the Lego, loving the paranormal.
Thank you.
I don't know if Dan was going to bring this up, but your website, the archive, is like I said, the quantity, not quantity, the quality of the reporting and the documentation. There is so much there. So if anybody is interested in a particular haunting, do a search, look at it, and just the research is a huge amount. You've got more there than I've seen on most paranormal websites.
Yeah, it's not often we're actually joined by an actual expert in the paranormal. Normally it's us hoping that we make some sort of sense and we've drawn out some things. So it's actually nice to be joined by an actual expert in the paranormal that, the reports that you do, like Steve said, so much detail in there, where I end up coming away going, I never knew that. Like an episode which should have gone out by the point of this episode going out. We speak about Anne Boleyn's ghost, and you said earlier about tourism, because she's everywhere in the UK. She's everywhere, and we actually did a bit of research on that. And thinking about it, I think if you were to end up doing a blog post about that, it would be far better than our episode on Anne Boleyn's ghost, purely because you will actually spend more time doing research into it than we did, of looking at the different locations and hauntings. You would put in the history of the building, the history of the location, the history of her being there, and her being a ghost. So you could probably do a whole series of those, whereas we've tried to cram all of that into one episode of here's her ghost. So it's good to have you here.
Yeah. Well, so I'm hoping to test your memory on one location, and you find out your opinion on this location, because this is somewhere anyone who's listened to our podcast knows that we visited a lot of these places. No, sorry, in Devon and Cornwall, and there's one place in particular we visited, and we just thought it was purely a scam, purely a tourist trap, and that's the Jamaica Inn. The Jamaica Inn. We rated it as a 0.
Okay. That's interesting, because I was hoping you'd ask about that. Like when you said Cornwall, I was like, please be Jamaica, and that's like one of the few Cornish places I've actually written about. So the interesting thing with Jamaica Inn is I've had something happen with that location after publishing the article that I've not had with any others, and that is the team that work there, because they've got their own investigation team at Jamaica Inn, and the team actually reached out to me about the article to correct things about the article, and that's not happened with any other location. The closest it's gotten to that is Tamworth Castle on Twitter. They shared the article on there, they reposted it, but aside from that, Jamaica Inn's the only location where I've had people reach out and being like, oh, you've got some stuff not quite right in your article. So I was like, okay, and they sent me a document thing with all this history that they've compiled, and I remember it wasn't far off with what I had written. The main point of contention was to do with my phrasing over the state of a particular road that existed during a certain time period, which I found quite a funny thing for them to be a bit fussy on, because I think I'd written that it was like nothing more than like a mud track, like a vague, not a proper road at all. And they were like, "Oh no, it was a road. People were traveling down it by that point." But then my counterpoint was kind of, well, it could have been a mud track and people could have still been traveling down it. It could have been classed as a road back then. So even the point of contention was still a point of contention for me as well. So, but yeah, that's the only one that's happened with. And they also said about the hauntings, they said, I think it was who said that there was one haunting there that wasn't true. And I think that was if I'm remembering correctly, is it Jamaica Inn where people leave like teddies and things and soft toys for like a little girl? Or is that somewhere
I'm
else?
not sure. It
might
might
be
be.
could well
I
be-
don't remember seeing teddies there, but
Yeah, it might be somewhere else. I think there are a couple of locations where that's happened. But I remember, I think it was the Jamaica Inn team had said to me that one of the hauntings was completely made up. I think it was that of a little girl. And so I found that very interesting and quite honest from them as well.
I'd say that's
yeah.
quite interesting though to say that there's only one that isn't. That none of them can be proved. They're all just eyewitnesses. How can you say that any one of them is made up?
Yeah,
without evidence.
This is the thing, and a particularly interesting. And I'm really hoping I am remembering that this is correct with the Jamaica. I'm sure it is, but they'd said this ghost that you've written about isn't true at all. That isn't a thing that we are aware of through our investigations. We've not found evidence of that. But then there was another one which they said was actually a thing, and I found this one very dubious and very odd for them to mention. And I think, and I'm hoping that this is Jamaica Inn that I'm remembering this from, but they called the spirit something like Gandalf the Pilgrim or something like that. It was a strange one where they were like, he looks like Gandalf. We don't often tell people this because we don't want the tourism angle to play a factor. And if suddenly everyone, Gandalf was haunting the place, everyone would swarm. So then I was like, well, why have you told me, someone who's writing an article and putting it out publicly about this one you don't want to know about? So that was a weird thing to me where I was like, that's very contradictory. Why tell me about the ghost you don't want to be public when you know I'm making it public?
Yeah.
So
and why be a ghost of a fictional character as well?
Exactly.
That's the weirdest thing. It does sound like they're trying to maybe introduce new ghosts into it, new stories, new legends, get people talking.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely didn't come after us of our comments of Jamaica Inn when we visited and we went, it's just a tourist trap, isn't it? There's no ghosts here. It's just a tourist trap with ghost pictures on the walls and that sort of thing. That was our comments of the Jamaica Inn. This is definitely a tourist trap. Whereas the other pubs we visited on that day, there were feelings and there were things where you could go, maybe there is a ghost here.
And we spoke to eyewitnesses as well. I don't think there would have been any eyewitnesses at the Jamaica Inn. They're all walking around with headsets because it's being controlled. If anything was happening there, they've got security cameras everywhere. And I'm sure it's been monitored 100% of the time. If there was any paranormal activity, it would be all over the internet. It's just, this is a large company that owns a very large tourist trap. And everything in it is branded ghosts. Everything in it is branded ghosts.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about them having their own team, because as great as that sounds, to be like, oh yeah, we're taking our haunting seriously. And there was another location I've read about who'd said this kind of thing. It might have been Old Soul Hall, I think, which had this same kind of thing where they're like, oh yeah, we're taking our history and our haunting seriously. We've got our own team. We're investigating it ourselves. We're doing that. And that sounds very good, big, impressive. Like, oh yeah, they're actually taking it seriously. But it's all done in-house, which is a huge problem because you don't know if they're being legitimate or not. Like, it's like, if they investigate their own place and they're controlling who investigates there, what they're putting out, what information that they have access to. So with them sending me that information, being like, oh yeah, here's the history, here's the hauntings. If I was just to go purely off that, then that's just what they've said. That's not what everyone else has said as well. And so that's a very limited narrative, which is woven by Jamaica and by that location. And so it might be complete nonsense for all I know. And it might just be them wanting to push, like you say, the tourism angle of, oh yeah, we're a very haunted place. Look at all this activity that we get, when really no one might experience anything, you know?
You're talking to their marketing department. That's all you are. You're talking to a marketing department. I mean, I understand why. We've got to keep the, there has to be places left. A bit of mystery is great, but it's just a marketing department. There's nothing there that feels anything more than just that. There's nothing authentic. And when you got everything corporate, like I said, you got a corporate response basically.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And that's what I felt about the whole place. That's how it felt, corporate. It felt like Alton Towers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas, do you remember in Boscastle when we went to the Cobweb Inn, and it was when we got talking to the staff in there about the fact that we do this podcast and we talk about the unknown, and they went, "Oh, we've got a ghost here," and I was like, "Oh, have you?" And then they go, "Yeah, go to our Facebook page. You can see our CCTV footage of the ghost." So it was me expecting something, like those memes that go out there where it's like, oh, there's a haunting, and you go around, it's somebody in a bed sheet, and go, ooh. And there was actually actual CCTV footage of, it was a bottle, I believe it was, on the shelf, and everything looks fine. And then suddenly this bottle jumps off the shelf onto the floor and just smashes everywhere. And there's no one in there because it was early hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And they've then had, since that happened, they've had things on that shelf in that location get thrown off in early hours of the morning. So now they don't have anything on that shelf because it just gets thrown on the floor. And
I think they're saying they used to have things go quite often, but they've just imagined because people are working there. This is the first time it happened outside of hours when there was no one there. And this building is solid stone on the solid foundation. It's not vibrations. There's nothing can shake that place.
That's really interesting. Is it like the same time of day as well? Like that kind of early hours?
I think that's the first time they captured it on the CCTV at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. But yeah, it has happened during crowded pub times, when everybody's there. It's a very popular pub, but they don't promote it as a haunted pub. We had to do a bit of research of the whole area to find, they don't throw it in your face.
See,
and then also, they don't claim 44. Jamaica, and you got listed here 44 different ghosts in one location.
Mm-hmm.
I'd take a bottle flying off a shelf more than 44 ghost beans in one place.
Yeah. That's the kind of place where I think that's more likely to be legitimate with the hauntings, where they're not promoting it, where they're not advertising it. It's just, and even when the owners are kind of skeptical of it and they're like, we've had this happen, we don't quite know why it happened, but it's happened a couple of times now, so we're not too sure if there's anything there. When it's that kind of attitude towards it, then I'm more inclined to think, oh yeah, that place is probably haunted then. Because, or at least it's actively haunted, because I'm like, well, yeah, because if they're not promoting it, they're not getting anything from this weird belief that maybe it's haunted or something like that. They are, it's a very genuine kind of attitude towards it. Whereas if they're, ranting, raving about it, being like, oh, look at all of our ghosts, look at all these 50 different ghost hunting events we've got, which are all going to charge you 70 quid per person, and things like that. It's very clearly one is legitimate, one is not, and the one with money behind it likely is not.
Yeah
I think you've got to experience something, especially with your equipment and your hardware, and when it shows something that you're feeling, and it's you can't explain it, and that's the whole thing. It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
And when we went to the Higgins Museum in Bedford as well, and suddenly felt this feels a bit odd, then looking at the meter and realizing that it was spiking quite a lot, and then looking around the room going, okay, well, there's no electricity or anything that could be causing this other than there's something here.
Just one location we went to in this place, and then we spoke to the staff, and they said, well, that's where the staircase used to be before they had the refurbishment, and people would say they were being pushed or tripped up and down the stairs. There was something there on the stairs, and that's where the stairs were, but they moved it all around, and they literally pointed to the place, and they said, that's where the staircase was, and we said, well, that's literally where we were, where our meter spiked, and we saw that nowhere else in the building. No matter, just that one spot, and that's where they said, again, we couldn't explain it, and it's just all it takes again is those little bits that open your eyes that little bit wider.
That's especially fascinating because, like, a skeptic would probably say, oh, you know, like what we've already discussed, like, oh, you've already seen something about the location where you know about the stairs or something like that. But given the fact the stairs have been removed and you still experienced it there's no indication there that your mind would go, oh yeah, these are the haunted stairs, because the haunted stairs aren't there. So
Yeah.
that's fascinating that you experience that in the exact same location that other people have experienced things.
Yeah, see, I'm very professional. These things I take, I do no research beforehand because I don't
That's
want
good.
to have that in my mind. So
No, that's
we
good.
just turn
Good.
up and we see. I
Yeah.
I actively avoid research anything. Maybe because I'm
Yeah.
lazy. Maybe I was building some Lego, but I think it's truly because I want to see if there's anything. I want something to prove it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
experienced anything anywhere
Yes.
yourself?
So at Carisbrooke Castle on the Isle of Wight, that's the one place where I would say that I've had kind of a definitive paranormal experience. So, you know, there are things that you experience every now and then where you're like, oh, was that a ghost? Wasn't that a ghost? I don't really know. But with this one, I am pretty confident to say that this was a paranormal thing. So for a little bit of context around the trip and me visiting the castle, because I live near Manchester, nowhere near the Isle of Wight. I've only ever been to the Isle of Wight once, so didn't know the place at all. Went there on a family holiday for my granddad's birthday. And the Isle of Wight, it's a small island. I think you can drive around the entire thing in a couple of hours. It's not that big of a place, but it is extremely haunted, apparently. Like when visiting, there were so many like opportunities for like ghost walks, and this place is haunted, that place is haunted. You know, it was very much so, seemingly a very haunted island. Um, and every now and then, I like to delve into research on psychic ability, because that always fascinates me as well. And I have a belief that everyone is psychic to some greater or lesser degree. I believe it's just a natural human ability, but for one reason or another, whether it be like, you know, if you're playing sport, some people are better running than others, but if you like, everyone can run, but some are better, just
Yeah.
naturally through genetics and things. I think that psychic ability is kind of like that, where you can train it a bit to get to a certain better level, but then you're not going to reach the heights as someone who might have like the right genetics or something like that. So every now and then I like to delve into research on that. So during the time I was researching on that by saying, oh, if everyone's psychic, I might be a little bit psychic. Can I increase my own psychic ability, kind of thing? So I had an app on one of my tablets where it was like a Zenocard test thing, which may or may not have been legitimate. I don't know. But either way, I feel it put me in the mindset of being more open to my surroundings and things, which is kind of the aim of that. And when on the Isle of Wight, obviously all these haunted locations, my family were like, oh, let's go visit Carisbrooke Castle. So I was like, cool. Didn't do any research beforehand. Very important to mention that. Like I say, very unfamiliar with the area, didn't know anything about it. And I was like, right, I wonder if, because I've been doing this kind of psychic training, if I'd be able to do what psychics do, and if I could walk around this location and not necessarily like full on see a ghost, but if I could go around the location and think, I think that this area might be a hotspot, this area might be a hotspot, this area might be a hotspot, and see if I can kind of sense anything. So there were 3 areas in particular which kind of were flagged up for me. One was there's kind of like a bit of a moat, I remember, I think, around the outside. I don't know if this particular memory of the moat was influenced by my research afterwards, but I remember feeling like there could have been something with that, and I believe that there was. And then there was a bedroom where I remember walking into the bedroom and thinking someone's died in here. But again, I'm skeptical on that one because there was a plaque on the wall, which, although out of view for where I had the feeling that someone's died in here, you can explain it away quite easily with skepticism, because one, it does say on the wall that someone has died in that room, but also it's a bedroom, it's a castle, it's an old location. Disease would have been a thing, you know.
Yeah.
And where are you going to die? Oh yeah, a bedroom's probably a very likely place if you're ill, which was the case there. I think someone had gotten some sort of illness and then died in their bed. So that one I can kind of explain away skeptically as well. But then the one experience where I'm like, no, that I'm pretty confident on was this kind of, I always refer to it as a keep. I don't know if it is a keep or not. It's just in my brain is that stereotypical stone tower-esque type area of the castle. And there's a stone staircase leading up to it, which kind of goes along the wall of the castle, and there's quite a lot going up to the roof of that area. And at the very top, there is a well, which is covered over by a metal grid, so you can still look down into it. And when I got up there, it was also, for context of the weather, it wasn't like anything out of the ordinary with weather. It was just normal day, no rain, maybe like a little bit of wind, that kind of thing. So I don't think there'd be anything with the weather that would have influenced my brain on, oh, is this a paranormal thing or not? Because it wasn't a particularly spooky thing. I could look out from the castle over to the view and things. It wasn't like a dark, foggy evening or anything like that. And there were a couple of people up there at the time when I got up to the top of the keep. So I decided to wait a little bit because I wanted to look down the well just to see how far down it went. It's unusual to find a well on the top of what looks like a roof. So I was like, oh, I wonder how far down this goes. So I waited for the people to leave and I looked out over just over the castle while I waited for them to go because I didn't want to look like this weirdo just staring down this well. And then once they'd left, I went over to the well and started to look down. And my eyes kind of followed the wall of the well down. So I didn't just like look straight down into the water. But then as I was following the wall down, two weird things happened. One is I started to get an image in my mind of a woman falling down the well. And I've been asked a few times, like, oh, what did the woman look like? And I always refuse to try and describe the woman because of the brain filling in gaps. It was like, I'm going to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago at this point. So, and I didn't write down anything at the time of what she looked like. And even if I did, that might still be false memory of brain filling in gaps. So, yeah, just woman falling down well is the image that I had in my mind. And the closer my eyes got to the water level of the well, the stronger I had a feeling that I would see a face looking back up at me from the water level. And like I said, the more I looked down, the stronger that image in my mind of the woman in the well, like falling down the well, became, and the stronger the feeling of the face looking back up became. So I then kind of freaked out because that's a very freaky thing to happen. And then so I just kind of left the area, went back to my family, was a little bit shaken up by the experience because it was that intense. And it's kind of the intensity that kind of suggests to me that it was likely some sort of paranormal experience because I've not experienced that kind of thing anywhere else. And it was such a strong experience that I then researched the place afterwards to go, right, that had to have been something. Like that surely is not just has happened out of nowhere. And so searched about the castle and found out a woman had fallen down a well in the castle and that people do report seeing a face looking back up at them from the water.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And a really, like, an even more interesting thing is it's the wrong well in the castle that I experienced it at, which is very funny. And when I was discussing with my uncle about this, he then pointed out, oh, yeah, but it's still, it's the same location. It would probably be connected by the same water supply and things. So it would still have that link. And so I was like, oh, that's a very good point, actually, yeah. But it also makes me laugh a bit because Derek Akora on Most Haunted was somewhat scrutinized for one particular, well, I mean, multiple things, but there's one particular thing where he was by a bed in a location and he was saying all this stuff about this bed, but he was standing at the wrong bed at the time. And it was actually a different bed in the location. So I was like, oh no, I've done a Derek Akora. I've said this stuff about this well, but I'm at the wrong well. But yeah, so that's a fascinating experience to me. And the only way I can kind of skeptically try and explain it is by thinking, right, it's a well, it's covered over with the grid. Subconsciously, I'd go, grid is there so you don't fall. So that's put it in my brain about falling down the well. But then beyond that, I can't really think of anything else aside from if I'm already thinking ghostly. There's a lot of like grey ladies and things that haunt locations. So maybe my brain went down that route and went, well, if someone's fallen down a well and it's connected to a ghost, it might have been a woman of some sort. And it's just a spooky image having a face looking back up at you from the water. So that's the only way I can think of it skeptically, to see what mental gymnastics my brain might have done to conjure that. But yeah, like I say, it's not happened in any other location with any other wells or anything like that. And for people to have reported the same thing makes me think it is significant, and makes me think that it is that. Because like I say, that's not happened at any other locations with any other wells, or regardless of how haunted or not haunted. And I hadn't done any research beforehand, so I didn't even know it was a haunted place. But again, the brain could have just gone, oh, it's a castle, of course it's haunted. So
Yeah.
You can kind of provide a bit of a skeptical argument, but I think given others have said the same thing, I think that kind of lends to it maybe being something. So I always said that's my definitive paranormal experience, because of just how intense it was, and the fact that there were numerous details that were kind of correct with that experience that other people have reported. So yeah.
Well, the thing I like about that is that this has one of the major things we look at when we look at haunted places that report hauntings, and that's what the structure is built on, and what the structure is built of. And this is a solid, good old-fashioned natural stone structure, and it's pretty good underneath. It's all pretty about the hillside it's on. It's all pretty the same thing. That always seems to be the link with realistic, believable, and multiple sightings come with structures like that. The schools museum we went to wasn't built out of brick. It was built, a lot of it's built out of stone, if I remember rightly.
Yes,
because it was a very old building, and I'm sure there's something to do. The pubs we went to, the pubs which convinced us there was something there, the pubs where people said, I don't believe in it, but this happened. Or I heard something, all right, this has happened to me. They were all buildings that were solid stone, built like a castle.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to any other well, you're looking at it, it's just basically a bit of brick and a hole in the ground. This is, they could capture anything. That's what I'm thinking. That's what the more we look at it, the more we see this. This is why old buildings are haunted so much more, I think, than modern buildings, because they're just, you can't really haunt a bit of chipboard, can you? It's not really that glamorous.
It is interesting.
Sorry, Daniel,
so one of the things that I think of is about the presence of water in locations as well. That's one of the things I look out for. So there are a few articles I've written. I can't remember the specific locations, but if there's anything particularly intense or weird, or like it's something from a film, but where typically you'd hear it and you'd go, no, that's not real. Like, they've made that up. But then the location is kind of like the ones we've discussed, where they're not promoting it, that it's not a tourism angle. They're the ones where I then go, okay, what is it about this location then that makes that such an intense thing? And so quite often I find that there's a presence of water of some kind, whether it be a kind of moat around the location, or if there's like a lake near, like round the back of it, or something along those lines, or like wells are commonly a thing as well. So that's always interesting. It's like one of the bizarre things I say sometimes, and I intend on doing more research into this, is I feel like if you want to investigate like what a spirit is, what a ghost is, I feel, and this is a claim where I'm like, it could be brilliant, it could be nonsense. It's one of the two. But I feel like if you want to get a good idea of what a spirit could be in terms of its makeup and how it behaves, then paranormal investigators and researchers need to look into jellyfish, because jellyfish are mostly water, and they are so far from what we would deem as life, yet they are alive. And they lack so much of what we would deem necessary for an organism to be alive. So that's what I'm like. It's either a nonsense thing because it sounds absurd, or it's brilliant because it does have that link with water, and it does have that link with life as well. So that's something I intend on researching more into at some point.
And they do also sort of like float around as well, and sometimes they're bits that are coming off can sting and hurt, and sometimes they're
Yep.
okay. And yeah, and then
Mhm.
because they're jelly, they've sort of like a bit like ectoplasm, aren't they? So
Yeah, they're
yeah,
really
maybe you're onto something there. Yeah.
possibly. They're like the only living organism that I can think of, which is the closest thing to a spirit of some sort. Whether that be stereotypical view of spirit, like what you've explained with like ectoplasm and things like that, or whether it be kind of that somewhat ethereal, just weird, beyond human comprehension. Because what we deem as like a life form, we think skeleton, brain, organs, blood, that kind of thing. But a jellyfish is kind of none of that, really.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's very, very strange.
So haunted locations, Daniel. I understand you are trying to make your house a haunted location.
Yes, it is something that I have tried my best to do. Because, yeah, the way that this came about is there were two things. So when I initially started out the database, it was mostly investigation and research focused. And it wasn't so much the articles that you see now, but it was me like doing my own investigations and research. And one of the theories I had was like I say, two things of interest. One was a Ouija board, another was haunted artifacts and items. And I was seeing a lot of stuff at the time about haunted dolls. And I was like, right, is this nonsense? Probably, but I'll find out. Same with the Ouija board, especially because the Ouija board especially is fascinating to me because it's got a history. It started out, I mean, you've probably had like the equivalent of like talking boards and things like that for way before the invention of the Ouija board. But the Ouija board itself is very much so a marketable product,
Yeah.
which, is again that money angle. Um, and so yeah, you usually hear either like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I've got another one this week. That was
Nice.
Another
there's
one.
definitely another one. Yeah,
Yeah, so you either hear that Ouija boards are the worst things ever in terms of they're the most dangerous thing you can possibly interact with the paranormal. It's going to open all these portals. You're going to summon all these demons. You're going to end up getting seriously injured or possessed or whatever crazy thing you can imagine. Or you hear the complete opposite of that, which is they're a load of nonsense, that nothing happens. There's no in between with it, which is what fascinates me about them. So with that, I was like, okay, I'm going to test it. I'm going to get a Ouija board and I'm going to get some allegedly haunted dolls as well, which I am pretty convinced at this point are not haunted at all. And so I was like, I'll get those because in the house that I'm currently in, it is a location I was in for a good bit of time at the time of starting this. And I was like, yeah, this isn't a haunted place at all. There's a cellar, which is dodgy. Like it looks like it would be haunted, but I've not experienced anything. So I was like, right, this is a good baseline place to try and do this experiment because it's not some creepy castle or old location or a place which could very well be haunted. It's just a house. And it's a house that I've lived in, not experienced anything in. I would not deem it actively haunted. So got the Ouija board, got the dolls, got other bits as well, which I wanted to try and experiment with to try and test out for myself because I'd seen other teams use them. So cat balls, touch activated, light up bear, and also the Spirit Talker app as well, which I'm still unsure on that app. I've had interesting things with it. Got these items, and pretty much throughout the rule book. So at first, I was cautious because, even though I'm skeptical on things, there's the possibility of what if it is real? What if everything that people say is dangerous about it is actually a thing? So at first with the Ouija board, was careful with it, followed the rules and things, and then nothing happened. Well, I immediately broke one of the rules, which is that you're not meant to play it by yourself. And I always did it by myself because of the idiomotor effect. I was very well aware of that, which is where your brain subconsciously moves the planchette and you kind of become convinced that it's not you moving it, so you just end up moving it even more. And I think that's why one of the rules is that you're not meant to play it alone, because if you're playing it with yourself, then you know your actions better. If it's just by yourself, you know more likely when your arm's going to relax and when you're going to nudge it a little bit. But if you're with someone else, then...
Sorry, I'm a child. I'm a child. You talking about your arm wiggling it a little bit and playing by yourself. Sorry, I am a child.
I
That
was
is
very
why
well aware of how odd that was
yeah.
sounding. I was like, there's no good way of saying any of this,
Yeah.
but yeah. But then if you're with someone else, then it
They
confuses
can do the
things.
wiggling for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Sorry,
someone else.
Dan, stop it.
Okay. It's okay.
Sorry, Dan, stop it. No, you, Dan, you carry on.
With using the Ouija board by myself, straight away I knew when I was moving it, when I wasn't. Because if you're just sat there for an hour and you've just got your hand on the planchette, eventually your arm will relax. You will end up moving the planchette. And then if you're by yourself, you can kind of account for that. You can replicate that. You can go, okay, was it a relaxation of the arm that's just caused that to nudge forwards a little bit? Whereas if you're with someone else, then they start freaking out and going, "Oh, did you move it?" And you go, "Oh, I don't think so. Did you move it?" And so that's my thought on that rule. And so that's all that I ever experienced to begin with. It was just the little bits of it like that where I'm like, I can explain it. So then I started throwing out more and more rules. And so the rules I threw out. So I think at first I read prayers beforehand. I went properly as people would advise, if they fully believed in it. So ditched the prayers. That was like the first thing that I ditched. Nothing happened. Left the planchette on the Ouija board without me touching it. Nothing happened. Didn't say goodbye. Nothing happened. And then I went full on, like what would probably look like some sort of satanic ritual with it, because I was like, I'm just going to push it as much as I can, because if this is this dangerous thing where it's opening portals, it's summoning demons, it's doing all that, let's try and do that. I want to have a face-to-face conversation with Lucifer or whatever, I want to summon Pazuzu into my living room and just have a nice sit down and drink with him. So I then properly lit candles, got a mirror facing a mirror with me and the Ouija board in the middle of that, because it's believed that if you have mirrors facing each other, that can open portals. And I have a book as well, which lists all these different names of various demons and whatnot. So I literally just sat there for a good hour or two going through this book with my hand on the planchette, with all of this kind of lit up and set up and things. And the room was dark as well, aside from the candlelight. And I was full on reading name by name. I summon such a name to come here and have a nice chat with me, and enter this room. And then went name by name to see, right, is there anything to any of this? Nothing happened. But there was one day, because one of the things I investigated during this time was the 28-day cycle, which is a theory created by Ed and Lorraine Warren, where if you investigate the place for 28 days in a row, solid investigation, the barrier between the living world and the spirit world will break down and you'll have fluent spirit communication. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting theory. Why has no one properly proved it yet? Why have we not proven the existence of ghosts if that's a thing? So I tried my best to do that. And I think I did it for about 10 of the days. And I remember there was a stock take at work. So the way I'd do the investigations is I would either start them at midnight or at 3 a.m. It depended on if I was in work the next day. And I think there was a stock taking work the next day. So I was up early anyway. So I was like, I may as well do a 3 a.m. investigation. So I did that with the Ouija board, summoning all of these demons and things, got in the taxi to go to work, literally a couple of hours later. And then the taxi was very, very nearly hit by a tram, that close. So I was like, oh, that's a bit of a weird coincidence, doing all this stuff, pushing it with the Ouija board, which people say can be very dangerous, and then I nearly end up getting hit with a tram while in the taxi. So yeah, that kind of put me off a little bit at that point. I was like, do I really want to keep going? But I still maintain I think that there's something to the Ouija board. I don't think it can summon demons. I don't think it can open portals. I don't believe any of the extreme stuff. But I do think a Ouija board shows intent to spirits around you. So I think that it shows them that you're wanting to communicate and that you're trying to communicate with them, which might inspire heightened activity. And I also believe that you can, through interacting with the board, you can kind of put energy from yourself onto the board or into the board, which spirits can then kind of take and use to, again, heighten activity with that. So that's currently what I'm thinking with Ouija boards, that it's, like I said, the middle ground that people tend not to discuss, where there might be something, but it's not anything mystical or magical or anything like that. It's just a transference of energy, probably, and a show of intent. Which, again, are the kind of two things which people do say are key in magic type of things. It's intent and energy. So, yeah, Ouija board's fascinating. And then, like I said, as for the haunted dolls, I don't believe that they're haunted at all. I've not experienced it. Like, the activity that was labeled with them was, children laughing, seeing apparitions, knocking on your door, that kind of thing. Not experienced any of that. So I'm like, yeah, that's none of what was meant to come with the dolls has happened. So I don't believe that they're haunted at all. They're just currently just sat on a shelf. So yeah,
A shelf full of dolls. Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
Well, I have found there is a market on eBay for such things, because when we did the episode about Dybbuk boxes, we went onto eBay to see about could we casually buy a Dybbuk box, and we found there was this dude that had this listing where on his account had something like 20 Dybbuk boxes of all different types, had a couple of haunted dolls and this, that, and the other, and you go through it going, are these genuine, or is this just somebody trying to make a lot of money because they could, for 40 quid they can?
Yeah, but we found out with the Dybbuk boxes, it was all made up anyway. It never actually existed in the first place. It was all just an art project, basically. It was just somebody making it up, making up a whole story, making up a history on in the internet, and people fell for it. And so he actually created the whole thing as an experiment, and now people are selling them by their thousands online. But go back to the Isle of Wight quickly. My first, I think, experience I ever had there, I felt there was something out there, something different, was my mum was working in a place called the Priory Bay Hotel. I was going back there, I must have been 11, and it was beautiful. It used to be a priory, and it was all the grounds, and there were buildings, and it had its own woods. You can go down to the beach, and there were rumours, all sorts of things. You could see ghost monks walking through the woods at night, which we never saw. But we had free reign. She was working there with 6 weeks there, free reign, could go anywhere you want. But what we did do, my sister and myself, I don't know if she heard it because she's a few years younger than me, but I could hear a child crying. We were staying in the hotel, in the very attic of the hotel. That's where my mum's room was, because she was staff. And we heard a baby crying one night, and there was no children there. And we went down. Apparently, that was one of the ghost stories, that you could hear children crying, but it was only in the staff quarters. It was like all the residents, they ate and they had their socials, the bar, everything was in the hotel, but they had all their sort of bungalows and chalets around, and that's where so nobody actually stayed in the hotel itself apart from staff. And it was a child crying. It was late at night because we were all night just having fun. But that was crazy because we spoke about it, and they said no, it's one of the ghost stories. I've looked up the hotel now; it's derelict. It went out of business. It's now ruins, which is such a shame because it was amazing, absolutely stunning. But the history of that place, and there was a feeling it was huge stone structures, and it had a feeling that there's something different here. When we heard that ghost cry, but again, I wasn't sure. Years later, I was thinking, did I actually hear the ghost cry? I can't ask my mum now. She's not around. My sister was too young to remember. It's only in my head now. Did I imagine it? But it's always been there in my head as a memory.
Interesting.
But it's fascinating. Yeah, Isle of Wight is definitely, there's something about the Isle of Wight. Absolutely fantastic, a lovely place.
Going back to like what we're saying about water, though, like it's a small island. surrounded by water. There's water everywhere. So yeah, maybe that's one of the things. Maybe there is something to do, like maybe islands will be particularly haunted. Maybe there is a radius or something like that where, you know, there's like a limit to how close you've got to be to water in order for it to have an effect or something like that.
And this was basically on the cliff top below. You just walk down, walk through the woods, down the, then you're on the beach, you're on the sea.
Yeah,
it's that close. But yes, that definitely does seem to be about, you know, stone structures and water.
Yeah, just
and
nature.
I also want to go back to your Ouija board thing as well.
Yes.
I've done Ouija board before, never experienced in it. I know people have been really scared of it. Only one person I've spoke to said that they actually are convinced it was real, and this was my dad. And he said when he was younger, now my dad, Christian, didn't believe it, doesn't want to believe in the paranormal. When he heard I was doing these podcasts, he was uncomfortable with it because of the subject. But he said when he was younger, he did a Ouija board with some friends. They'd had a few drinks, they were doing a Ouija board, and he ended up speaking to his brother who died when he was a child. Or when he was like just a bit older than dad. He was like my dad's best friend, and my dad was the closest to him. But he was answering all the questions, but there was like 3-4 people doing it. So it wasn't just him guiding it. He said he was he didn't even say, when they said, you know, there's somebody with the initial DH. Does anybody know DH? And Dad, yeah, okay, well, that's, you know, the only DH he knows was Doug, was his brother. And then they did it, and he said that he was actually answering questions. The Ouija board was answering questions, and he hated it. He hated the fact he couldn't understand how. With multiple, it wasn't just him steering it; everybody was, and he was answering. They were asking stuff that even he wasn't sure about, but he was absolutely convinced it was real, and he never spoke about it until when he found out I was doing this, and he was being treated for his cancer, and we were in hospital. Then he started talking about it, and he had kept it in his entire life. You know, there'd been good 40 years, 50 years he hadn't spoken about it, and just wouldn't speak about it. But towards the end of his life, he had to tell me about it. But it was fascinating because it's weird, because coming from my dad, that was never, I would never, if you'd have said, bet £1 million your dad's going to say he had a supernatural experience, I wouldn't have put money on. I would never thought he was the one to actually come and say that it happened, and he was so convinced by it, and he never told us. But and my dad was somebody who, you know, took that kind of thing very seriously. He didn't like the supernatural, and that scared him. So that's what I've got the Ouija board for. So next time we get together, Dan, hopefully Dad can talk, because, you know, I'm trying to see if Dad will talk to me now. That was it.
Yes. Well, he did promise you that he would.
He did say he would make an effort. That's unless he bumped into Jesus on the way, and Jesus let him in. He said he was just, that was enough. He wasn't going to hang around if Jesus was there to meet him. So that was it.
And we've got a Jesus lookalike with us today. No offense, Daniel, but
so, and the other thing is, you said about you've done almost everything you can to make your house haunted.
Yes.
There's a couple of things that I can think of that you haven't done yet.
Oh, go
you
on.
do have a basement.
Yes.
Ideal for burying bodies.
So, ironically, when I said earlier on it was dodgy, don't worry, there's not a body buried down
You
there.
have.
There is. The floor of the basement, there's a lot of so it's like stone floor. It's like very rugged looking basement type. It's not a proper thing. But in the middle, there's a weird gravel patch. There's just a weird patch of gravel in the middle of that room. And I'm like, why? Why is
dig
this
it up? Stream you digging it up. Go on. Got to.
So it's one of those where I was like, So I have done some investigations in the basement, and just to see.
One last thing. If there was a location you could go to investigate yourself and spend some time, where would it be?
Good question. See, I'd love to investigate Alton Towers. I know you mentioned it earlier, but that's my favorite place in the world. I'd always visit every year for my birthday, which is in October, which is brilliant because then it's Scarefest and it's spooky and amazing. But Alton Towers is a fascinating place because it is apparently very, very haunted, and there are people who've worked there that I've spoken to, and and who I've had contact with and things, who have said it's haunted. And there's one in particular where, because I think it was the person I'd worked with who told me this particular story, but there was someone who worked at the park who died, and they were really close friends with someone who worked in the Wickerman gift shop. And there was a day where that person was by themselves in the gift shop, and then they heard a voice, or they heard their name called, or something like that, from within that gift shop, and it was the voice of their friend who had died. So it's a fascinating place, because when you think of Alton Towers, you think, oh, surely it's like the towers, it's all old hauntings, but you've also got to bear in mind you've got staff members who are really invested in the place who may very well have died, such as that one. Then you've got people visiting the place. So many people go there each day, and that will be some people's favorite place in the world. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's haunted by so many different types of spirit, whether it be staff or people who visited or people who lived in the towers themselves. So that would be fascinating. And you've got stories from security guards and things where they've seen figures, and where I think there's a story from one where they were fishing on the lake one night, and they could hear the sounds of a full-on banquet happening from within the towers. Kind of, they could hear that from the banqueting hall while they were out on the lake, and so it's fascinating. You've also got a story as well of a gardener, I think, who would see someone in kind of medieval dress, I think it was, and they thought that there was an actor hired by the place, and it was only when they kind of went up to them to ask them who they were and things that, the person disappeared, and then they realized, oh, I don't think that was an actor, I think that was actually a ghost. Which again is interesting, because I have a number of theories on these things, one of which I call living ghosts. So there's a lot of experiences that I've found through the research of ghosts that people don't know are ghosts because they're that vivid. So I always refer to those as living ghosts, because they are ghosts that you would think are actually alive. And that's always a fascinating thing, because there's such inconsistency with reports of what people see with ghosts. And so it fascinates me, like, why is it that some people are seeing these living ghosts where they're like giving them life advice, or they're seemingly, being actual people, and not ghosts? And then why do you have some which are just floating heads or legs or walking through the walls?
Yeah.
What causes that variation? So like at the moment, within like the last week or two, I've had kind of a bold thought, which I feel a lot of people would disagree with, which is that any photo or video caught of a ghost may not be legitimate, because I think it's all down to psychic activity. Going back to that, I think that, again, relating to my experience on the Isle of Wight, when we see a ghost, we might not see it with our eyes, but we might see it with our minds. It's like it's commonly said about spirits being able to interact with us with dreams, whether that be appearing in our dreams or giving messages through dreams, which to dream and to daydream, to create an image with your mind, I think is the same thing as psychic activity. I think that goes along the same wavelength as that. And so I've been thinking lately about, what if that's all any paranormal thing has ever been? Like, whenever we've seen a ghost, we've thought we've physically seen it, just like how with the living ghosts, we think we're speaking to a person, when really we're not seeing it with our eyes. We're seeing it in the same way that someone might see a hallucination or a daydream or something like that. It's just convincing. But if that's the case, and that does mean that any photo or video evidence ever captured is likely not actually of a ghost. It might have a logical explanation behind it. And the thing that led me to this thought was, technology is everywhere nowadays. We've got so many recordings of things, so many phones everywhere, so many cameras everywhere. But the rise in paranormal sightings through the technology hasn't happened. We're not seeing frequent images and videos of ghosts when we should be. So that led me to think, well, why is that? And the answer is, well, maybe it's not anything physical. Maybe it is psychic that we're seeing them through. Because otherwise, the ghost would have to either emit or reflect light. And I don't know how that would work. I don't know how they'd be able to do either of those things, because that's how any camera or your eyes or anything works. It picks up light, which is emitted or reflected. And so that means that the spirit would have to form some sort of solidness, probably, in order to be able to do that.
But it's
And I
you're
think-
right. It's just that really physical. The amount of people we speak to, and the ghosts are just real. They don't float. They're not transparent. They are just people, and they have. Yeah, it's crazy. We see more and more of this type of ghost.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan.
Well, no, I was just going to say that sounds like a nice point to round up this episode. You know,
So what I'll do is
with-
I will link the TikTok, your TikTok, and I'll link your websites on our website as well, so people can follow, because there'll be a little article on it. We'll see if we can get more people pushed your way, because it's fascinating. You've got such a great resource there.
Yes,
Thank you.
do search. It's thetrueparanormal.blogspot.com, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the trueparanormal.blogspot.com. Yeah.
Yeah, so do go and have a read of Daniel's brilliant articles about all of the things that he has been documenting over there. It's amazing. And the detail that you go into on there is phenomenal. So it's well worth everybody going over and having a look at your blog there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on as well.
Yes, well, thank you for being here. It's been absolutely fascinating picking your brains about all of these things, and you'll have to let us know how the getting your house to become haunted goes.
I will. So far, not much success. So hopefully that improves. But yeah, it's an interesting notion, and I don't know why more people don't try and do that. Because, if you go off of the more extreme beliefs about the paranormal, it should be very possible and quite easy to do.
Yes.
So already, through not being very successful, that's kind of, I feel, disproven a lot of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, you need more body parts, human body parts. That's what you need.
Apparently, that's one of the things I've not tried yet. So.
You need more suffering in your house. It's obviously too nice a place.
Clearly, too much Lego.
Yes.
Clearly,
Too much Lego, too little torture.
Yeah, I need to start throwing sets against walls. Try and create utter devastation.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that would be. But thank you so much, Daniel.
Yeah, thank
Really
you for
appreciate
being
your
here.
That's all right. So it's been great chatting with you both.
Yeah, and as always, those of you listening, do check out all of our socials. If you want to see the full unedited video version of this, then do go to our Patreon and subscribe to our Patreon, where you can see all of this whole conversation that hasn't been cut. So over there. But yes, thank you for joining us this week, and yeah, until next time.
Goodbye.
Boo-Foons, mystery investigators.